Hey you peeps, time for another video. So, this is part 2 of the Homeland of the culture of the ancient Egyptians, and basically we're going to look again at Eurasian loanwords, in particular English, because it seems when we look at the Ankh, and we look at the angles, we see some strange word connection, which might be a coincidence. Now, it is de rigueur to say that everything that sounds similar is a coincidence, right? But when you start to see the words over and over again that they are similar, you start to think to yourself, okay, it's far beyond a coincidence. Something else is going on. Something we don't know about the past. So we've said this is hanged. In other words, it's a hanged man. If so, that is clearly a head, a face. Meanwhile, Egyptologists say it's a sandal tie. That's right. They are worshipping. The Coptic Christians decided to start worshipping a sandal tie as Christianity, according to Egyptology. Now, I don't believe that for one moment. They adopted this as their symbol. Why did they adopt this as their symbol? Because it means life, afterlife, and eternal life since before 3000 BC. This is a very old symbol. It's early dynastic, and it's associated with Isis. Isis is, when you look at who Isis is, Isi, it's, you could turn that into Jesus. It's a bit strange because it actually turns out that Isi is the mother in this situation. So it is kind of a woman, but she has the baby child. So it is like Mary and the baby Jesus. Okay, so it's quite interesting. So they're saying like, that they actually don't know what it is. I know what this is. This is a hanged man, brought by possibly the Inglings, the Hanglings, because why? Because they were Odin worshippers according to the Icelandic and Norwegian mythology, and as such, worshipping Odin, they are going to know that he is a hanged man. So this proto-Christianity, we've shown that it goes back to Göbekli Tepe. Look at the Göbekli Tepe videos. This is kind of a T pill at a T. There's something else that's going on. Let's go. So, okay, let's look at Ka. So the Ka statue, you've got it's similar to the root of God. So the Ka statue is basically two arms outstretched, and it's the life force, it's the spirit, it's everything that's supernatural, and it comes with the along with the physical body. The bar, which is the personality or soul, and the shut. This is pronounced shut, SWT. In other words, the Egyptian word for shadow is shad or shut, same as in English. It's another one of these coincidences that I keep seeing. Now, there's something else going on, right? The arms are outstretched, a bit like a crucifix. Bit like the old Ankh. Why might that be? Could that be, again, a type of proto-Christianity? Oh, we don't want to look too much at that. Ooh, that's weird. Right, okay. So you don't think it's the same as a crucifix, as Jesus? It is, because it represents the power to sustain life and to revive human souls in the afterlife. In other words, your soul will have an afterlife thanks to that. And this is 3000 BC-ish. So if you don't think that has anything to do with Christianity, then your thoughts are none of my concern. Okay, let's continue. There's a bit more interesting information. There's a different type of Ankh called the tiet. In other words, the tie, or the duet. literally an English word, the duet, the tiet, or the tie, and it looks like a tie. It's like a floppy thing around the neck. And it's a type of Ankh, and we don't particularly know what it is. And it goes back to the first dynasty. It's just it's like the hands on the sides, but they're no longer outstretched. And it could be feet and arms and a face. Could be. But this one is more mysterious and less known. We'll get to Wadjet soon. Let's see if we've got something else. There's something on Horus. So Horus is, I've said this long ago, it's similar to Tor, or Taurus, Tor. Also similar to Heru, which makes him similar to Heracles, which is a type of Thor. And of course, looking back to Göbekli Tepe, it must also somehow make him similar to Janus. Horus is interesting. He had a war with Set. Set ripped out one eye or something like that. And Horus is a sky god like Tor. And what's interesting is the relation to the English word aura or iris, because it is to do with his eyes that we are concerned with him. He had a war with Set. So if Horus is aura, he's the sunrise, and the one he's going to war with is the sunset. And his eyes are actually the sun and the moon. So his eyes are actually generating light, which is interesting. And we'll get to a further link. But okay, let's look at also at Thoth. Thoth, we know it's a German word. Thought, dead. These are what Thoth was all about. So we've deduced it's a Germanic god long ago. It seems to be in the Bible as the word dove. The dove who came to help Noah with his knowledge, show him where the land is. Dove is in the Germanic lexicon as the names, because we see that people are named after gods. Toby, Todd. These words to me prove that the English people or their ancestors once venerated Thoth. The god Thoth was a Germanic god, 100% a Germanic god. We've talked about Wadjet as the eye, I believe, in the past video, or one that didn't get recorded, it got deleted or something like that. In other words, it's saying ochi, Wadjet, ochi is eyes, plural in Polish, or oczov in the older one. So it's saying eyes. It's saying eyes twice. So a Wadjet eye is an eye's eye. But it gets worse, because ochi in Polish also means lights or lamps. So the Polish eyes can illuminate, just as Horus's eyes can illuminate, because his eyes are the sun and the moon. So Wadjet, that means a Wadjet eye can illuminate. Now, why are we looking at the Slav language now? Because I've noticed that we're not looking at the English, obviously. We're looking at the ancestors of the English, and they were closer to the Slavs back in those days, so they would share some words. Are we using the English language? No, we're trying to suggest there was a prototype of Proto-Middle English. From the east, they migrated to the west, and some of them went to Egypt and brought their culture to Egypt. Simple as that. Let's continue. A little bit more vague, but Wadjet sounds like water to me. Oda, eta. So there's something to do with water, but if you do a search in the Wadjet article, this is the Eye of Horus, about water, you won't find anything. So then I notice, okay, well, let's look at the Egyptian word for blue, because the eye is blue, is wood. In other words, water. It's so similar to English. Okay, let's get on to something else. Now, it was said that the pyramid, let's bring that up. Okay, someone left a comment in the previous video and said, Charlie, you don't know what you're on about, because pyramid is the Greek word, and clearly Mer is the Egyptian word. So what do you say to that? I say you're wrong, and you're also partly right. So let's look at Mer. So Mer is the Egyptian word. So we'd expect to see at least English or Polish or Slav versions, and there's millions of them. A myrrh relates to Mother Mary. It relates Marian. It relates to marriage. It relates to merit. It's made of it looks like marble, which is a polished stone because it had polished stones on the surface. There's an English word called marmoreal, which I found in the OED, which means a polished white or polished stone. So literally that word is in English as something describing the pyramid. It is a miracle. It is a mirror, polished stone. It's a mirage in the desert. It's Mary. It's to do with tomorrow, maybe the afterlife, more. It is a more thing. Does that mean big in older English? It's a mark in the desert. It's a mark in Egypt. And it could be a market. Why? Because Silbury Hill, Sil is where they held sales. They held sales at Harvest Hills, but these would have been Sal Hills or Silbury Hills where you have sales. Someone said pyramid is not Egyptian. Not Egyptian, they said. Incorrect. In the 50s, Professor wrote the 72 Britannica article, and in the Middle Kingdom, the word for the height of a myrrh is in fact pyramis. So the word pyramid has had something to do with pyramids since 1500 BC at least, and we don't have many writings from the Old Kingdom. Someone also said it's a Greek word. Well, hate to burst your bubble, but ancient Egypt, part of ancient Egypt was in fact Greek. Look at the Ptolemaic dynasty. Also, we have words which seem to clearly derive from the measurement of a pyramid, such as perimeter, which is an English word or a European word, which means that you have to measure the circumference of a square base, which was clearly sacred according to ancient legends regarding the Great Pyramid. So were measuring round pyramids like Silbury Hill, the circumference. Why would you do that? Why would you want to do that? It's important. These are the basic mathematical functions are generated by the need to measure a gigantic monument for some reason. The perimeter, and the circumference. And I've even said, look, it has an English etymology as well. If pyramis goes back, which it does, it's literally a burrow in the middle. It's a burrow or a burial in the middle of Egypt. Pyramid. Burial mid. But mid is also generated by the root mother, and you won't find this anywhere because these etymologists are a bunch of, you could call them, I call them third-rate. It's not their fault. They're following academic rules, and they didn't have their own. They didn't have enough knowledge to see what I'm seeing. They didn't have the internet to help them. So it could also be mother barrow, since middle derives from mother. The mother is in the middle. Mother barrow in English. And the word English itself derives from the hanglish, the hangs, angle, the angles, or the hangs, eng. In other words, people bearing this image, the Ankh people. And the Odins, as we said, is a hanged man, because they were Odins, according to the German mythology. The Inglings coming from Asgard in Asia. I translate Asgard as East Grod, Asia Grod, which is the city in the east. And these are Odinists. And Odinists would worship the hanged man. And hence they're in Egypt. I went around with that argument a bit. There are also titles named after the myrrh in English. We're full of M words, myrrh words. So it's saying it for the marshal, the marquis, the marchioness. A marum, something geopolymary, a type of a shawgrass that binds sand is a marum. It's a marvel. And it relates to the martyr. Yeah. So it relates to not only Mary, but martyrs as well. There's something proto-Christian here, and we know from the top, obviously from the top, it looks a bit like, a bit like that. So it's a kind of 8-sided cross or something funny going on like that. So it relates to Christianity as well, and it's in the centre of Egypt. So you draw a huge, what am I doing? You draw a huge cross through it to the borders of Egypt. Same in England with Silbury Hill, we've shown that. See the Landscape Christianity series. And there'd be more going off to the sun, sunrise, etc. And then you'd have to do a perpendicular one there. And then you get the British flag, and so you go on and on. The Emi words also obviously go back all the way to the moon and moon worship, another Germanic link, which brings up words like mass, material, medium, the medium point of Egypt and the mean of Egypt, mathematical terms relating to the middle, relating to pyramid religion and geodesy. All right, let's go on. Now, people have said, the Egyptians must be indigenous because they said they were, because they're the people of the Black Land, and the Black Land is Egypt. So there's problems. Firstly, there's the Red and the Black Land, so there was the two lands. Now, Red Land actually means Dejret, is written as Dejret in ancient Egyptian, and we call that a desert. This is quite similar. We've long ago said that Kemet is chemistry comes from gum. That's another European word. It's playing with different gums. In other words, they called the Black Land Veramech and Kemet. To me, that sounds like it's called people of the Black Land. That is the word for people, and that is close to Latin. That re means race. That re is in the Roman name of the Roman state, the Res Public. It's the Rud. In the Slav languages, the Rud is the root. Root in English. It's the root of the people, their race. That is also the word in Russian, possibly, where that comes from. Razna. Razna was what the Etruscans called themselves, and they said there's no etymology for it. The etymology is race. It is a race of people. So they call themselves the race of the gum land, essentially. And you can see these are European roots. So an Egyptologist coming along and saying, is there indigenous? What the hell are you talking about? Are you saying they evolved separately to the rest of humanity? This doesn't make any sense at all. Their arguments make no sense. They said there's no evidence that there was great migration into Egypt. I mean, we're humans with a pair of legs. Just look at the words. The 9 deities are the Ennead. The Nia is the root 9. What's going on there? We don't need that. So Egypt was also called the two lands. We're the people of the two lands. And they used a European word to describe what they called the two lands. They called it the Tui, the two, Dowie. And I've noticed this is also the word for God, so Dio or Duo. In other words, their sort of God is applied to the land, and it's a kind of yin and yang situation, or it's a god, a male god and a female god. So the word God is the same. It's an ancient... the word God is actually in their land. In other words, their land was the god, which is why they put the pyramid there, because they had to sanctify... that the whole land was a gigantic cross with the pyramid in the middle, you see? There's their landscape Christianity again. And that's what the Lelans come from. A giant cross with the pyramid in the middle. So their land is the god. And the name of the land is Dio, Dowie, Tui. Close to terror as well. Clearly another European word. Now you can claim, like they say, that English was invented, 800 years ago, but I've never seen, as I mentioned, I've studied English and Old English and Middle English literature at a very high level at uni, and I see no transition from Old English to Middle English. Middle English does not come from Old English. It has an independent origin. There is no way to change. What happened was Old English seems to have disappeared. The speakers seem to have died. And they started speaking another pre-existing language, which we call Middle English or Modern English or Medieval English. Old English is a different language. So, conclusion, these are European words over and over and over. Cultural origins, where do they come from? Egyptologists do not want to say this, they want to say they're indigenous. Indigenous means you don't believe in the origin of the species. It means you believe that they have an autochthonous They popped out of the soil separate to the rest of humans. This is a stupid notion, and they need to get over this, but they can't because they're a little bit woke, and this will hurt their heads, but I'm telling you the truth. What do you think? Tell me in the comments below. That's about it. All right.